One.
Hello.
Hello. How are you?
We have to do this again. Last week, we've been very good. We've been very good at doing one every week. Biggest problem is last week we had audio difficulties.
I know, 2.5 hours.
Yeah.
And didn't even realize that we were
not
recording audio.
Yeah. So you have a lot of pictures of us doing this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Talking with our hands. So yeah.
Marty solved global warming.
Yeah, we cured cancer.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's buried somewhere in the apartment, right next to the.
But then we ate Wendy's and forgot it. So be careful eating. Yeah.
Yep. So and what's really funny is I honestly cannot remember what we talked about.
What we talked about? Well, we were all over the place actually,
which was really fun.
Yeah, we were all over the place. We talked a little bit about, because we were getting ready to go take a concealed carry class, and
right.
We talked about that. We talked about.
So we are, soon to
politics,
soon to be concealed carry permit holders,
licensees, and then we made a passionate plea for a collaborative process. And that was probably the best part of the whole film, not film, but podcast, because I think when Marty got done, he felt like that was one of the best uplifting things he had talked about for a long time. So he was talking about, we weren't just talking about getting collaborative, but we were talking about, we wanted somebody our own age. We're in our late 40s, and this is Burnt Out Studios, and we're burnt out, we're tired, but we're still trying to claw our way into it. And we were putting out a passionate plea out there to find somebody else who is in the same situation. You find yourself with somebody who's painted or colored, and did some type of painting throughout your life, and now you find yourself, I don't know, maybe bored or without a job, or you're working at a dead-end job, but you'd like to be doing coloring and
one of the things that it would be fun. We're not. Even though it's Burnout Studios, and we're getting up there in age, we're still learning, and we're still wanting to learn. So that's what we're looking for is
no, that's
people
true.
are in that same boat.
Yeah, maybe
it'd be nice to find because. I compare it to, making a movie. You have a person that writes the script and stuff, but everybody that comes into that project adds their own thing. I mean, sure, there's some directors that won't let you. They have a certain things that they want to keep, but everybody adds their own flair to it, and that's and I like that a lot.
Actually, he's done quite a bit of letting me change things up in the book, and so when we first started it, I always kind of had the feeling that he would try to write something and say, "Good luck drawing that." And then I want to be able to draw it and then pass it on to inking or coloring, and then say, "Good luck trying to color that," and just kind of one-upmanship type of collaborative process where we're all pushing each other and not just plugging and chugging and churning out pages. It should be at the end something a little epic. I think
Right.
it better be epic now by the time we've spent on it.
Right.
I mean, I look back and how long I've been working on it, and I could have turned out everything by now, but maybe it wouldn't have mattered. But I look back at my earlier stuff, and it was so stiff and wooden, and
Mm-hmm.
I think like most of it would have turned out like that, and it would have been done. I don't know if I would have read it though.
No, I mean, I think it was.
You know what I mean? It's just.
I think it. Even the original, pages that we did, that we submitted. I think they were good, but what's funny is, we keep on pushing and pushing and pushing, and it just keeps getting better. So
Yeah, I think it's getting better, and.
But I mean, you can say the same thing about anything. One of my heroes in comics, or when I was growing up, because what I wanted to do the same thing, was one of my favorites was Gary Larson. And it wasn't because he's a great artist. It was because he was just funny, and they were just single panel comic strips, or whatever you want to call them. And I have a portfolio of a bunch of those myself. And but what's funny is, if you look at Gary Larson in the early days, his art, you can see a improvement over time, even with his pretty limited style.
Right.
But
He wasn't Bill Watterson.
But I mean, you can say the same thing about a lot of artists. They just keep improving.
Yeah, they do.
And
Although you don't want the beginning of the book to look a lot drastically different than the end of the book.
Right, I know, because especially with our project, where it's 8 books. You don't want the last one to look like Japanese anime compared to the first one that looks like
I remember when they proposed Enterprise, that series.
Mm-hmm.
So they were going to go before the original Star Trek.
Right.
To the first crew of the Enterprise.
Mm-hmm.
And we had come, what, by then? 30, 40 years into the future.
Right.
Of our own technology. And so they had to somehow update the Enterprise without updating it more than the original.
Right. And they did the same thing with the Star Wars, when they did the prequels.
Right.
All of those ships and everything that they were flying around in look far more advanced than the Star Wars 4 through 7.
Yeah, a lot of them.
4, 5, 6,
Well, I think,
6,
yeah, well, yeah. I think what they tried to do is they used the brushed steel,
right.
metal to make them look more vintage.
I guess.
But as far as I understand, that's the way the galaxy's been for 1,000 years, with the same level of technology.
Right.
So.
Yeah.
Yeah. So. So I've constantly been changing the book and constantly redrawing it, but we're at a point now where I think my skill is set, and
it's funny, I mean, you from when we started to now, you have completely learned all this computer stuff now.
Oh yeah. So when I first did it was all hand drawn.
Yep.
Which, I mean,
pencil to paper.
It's nice because then you get to sell pages afterwards, and if people actually want them and things like that. It's gotten to be so much faster. The only downside that I've been noticing with the computer, and it's something that I really got to work on, is it allows you to zoom in and work on characters and things like that don't need a lot of work, because they don't print anyways. So, and then I put them right size, and it's like, wow, why does it look all muddy and not very good? It's because there's just too much information packed in there.
Right.
So I saw a tutorial where guy talked about being able to set the maximum zoom in your program to 150. So you only get to go up so high. I think I need to do that. Definitely need to make sure of that, and then not be drawing stuff so tight. There's some pages that I have that are now up on our website that burntoutstudios.com, but
Yeah. Our website's
it's just
going to be
it's
back
just
up.
really long action scene, and they cram everything in there. I had to make everybody so small, but I think they're overly detailed to an extent, and so I gotta check that out, because then it muddies up the page. All you see are little dots everywhere instead of the actual action that's happening. So, like I said, we are learning as we go.
Yeah, but we definitely have been, everything's been improving.
Mm-hmm.
So.
And
Plus, we got a podcast.
Plus, we got a podcast, and I want to be able to stream on Twitch, do live streams of figuring out the process. I want to match up with our subscribers, or our patrons, viewers, and if you're in the same process of trying to do a book, and maybe we can help each other out, figure out how to do it right. If you're having a problem with perspective, and if I know a little bit, maybe I can help you out, and maybe you can help me out, and I can help out with anatomy and things like that.
Another thing that's that I've always known, and one of the things that's nice about where we live, if you guys are just tuning in, we actually live in Utah, and what's funny is there is a huge population of artists and actors and all these different people, musicians. I know quite a few of them that I've always wanted to just kind of get a group together, of all these different people, artists that are of different backgrounds. Some people are artists in writing, some people are artists in art, some people are artists in music, and it's some are artists in film. I have a real good friend that is actually the DP on Yellowstone. He's Austin Green. He's really talented. But anyway, I have no doubt that we can find someone, a colorist that we're looking for here in Utah, because I think that there's a lot of big fish in this pond. So.
There are, and like I was saying, because of the way the internet and the business has gone, I think there's quite a few people that feel displaced, feel like they don't. Well, we ran into a writer who didn't want to create his own stories, but wanted to play in other people's sandboxes.
Right.
Or with other people's toys.
Yeah.
Create his own stories with their toys, but I had a Batman story, his Batman story, but with Batman,
Right.
But he didn't want to create his own Batman and tell his own stories. So I figure there has to be colorists, painters out there in this area too that have to be in the same process too, that don't know what they want to paint, just want to paint. We want to get to a point where we can launch an Indiegogo for this book, a Kickstarter. we want to be able to work on it full time, and so we need to be able to grow our audience, and part of that's the podcast. The other part would be streaming, and so we need that crowd interaction to help build it.
Right.
And if we can just add another person to the collaborative process, that'd be great. We've even talked a couple of times about trying to find somebody who might be willing to work as a marketing director for us.
Yeah.
Or a salesperson. I don't know. One way or the other. They don't even have to like comics. It would help.
Right.
It would help just because it'd make going to if we even get to have conventions again.
Right.
But it'd make going to stuff like that a lot more fun. I think part of that might be some of our hardest hurdle is going to get over the social networking part of it. It seems like it shouldn't be. It seems like it should be really easy to just, get a comment on this video and then respond to the comment.
Right.
And even though I'm talking now, I feel like, well, do people really want to hear my comment to their comment? And I'm sure they do, but it's like, So I need to be better at that.
Right.
I need to be better at engaging other people and talking to them. And
it all depends. I mean, if the comment's just a generic comment of, oh, great job or whatever, what do you, I guess you just say thank you. But I mean, what would really be nice is, actual engaging questions like, what are your settings here when you're doing this or whatever,
right, or
actual, stuff that you would be more of an expert at than an average person. I mean, even though you're learning as you go, but they
or just questions to ask us what to talk about on here.
Right. I mean, I'm not, or I don't know if I could claim to be an expert in writing or not. I think that I form stories well. My imagination is really good. If you're wanting to talk about grammar and punctuation and stuff like that, it's like, okay, that's not my strong suit. Because I talked about this last time and I didn't get to record it, was the way I write is usually I write conversation first, and so it's like 2 or 3 people talking, and as they're exchanging dialogue, so I'll write all that in, and then I go back. That's why I don't put pen to paper. All these writers that I talk to, they're like, oh, I can't write unless it's pen to paper. And it's like, no, I can't do pen to paper. I have to have a computer because I'll write the conversation, then I'll go back and fill in the he said, she said, and then I'll go through and I'll fill in, what they were doing. So all the background stuff, as he's drinking a cup of coffee, he, says this, that kind of stuff, So I fill all that in, and soon I have a finished chapter or whatever. But I mean, of course, the very first thing, with any story is, I have to do an outline. So I have a beginning and an end, and so yeah, it's
that's funny.
That's my process.
I write faster than I type, and I can keep up with my mind writing it out, but I can't typing it. So like if I think of 4 lines to say, I will have forgotten the 3rd and the 4th one by the time I get to it.
Right.
Like, I might know what I was supposed to say in the line, but I won't remember the great line that it was. Does that make sense?
Right.
Like the exact words I was going to use that make it so cool.
Right.
But I can do it handwriting. So what I've been doing is I've been using the iPad, and I can use hand recognition.
Mm-hmm.
And so I write it, and then it'll put it to text for me.
Right.
And that has made a complete difference, because I was having to handwrite all this stuff out, and I got all these pages just like handwrite, little idea here, little idea there, little idea here, and then it's like, well, now I got to go back and transcribe it to make it legible, and then put it in an order, and then I don't want to do that. And so the story just sits.
Right.
And it takes forever for me to type it out, and what's it, and then, but now I can just write it. Or what I was doing there too is trying to use the audio stuff, so I could just read what I wrote and then go and correct it.
Right.
But even that wasn't working out the best. But writing it on the iPad's made a big difference.
Right.
And I've actually been able to get story written that I have an idea for something else. But yeah, it's interesting how different we were, because I think of just scenes and just write out scenes. And you're right, I do think of more dialogue stuff.
Well, it's funny because when stories come to me, I see it more of as a movie in my mind.
Mm-hmm.
Just two people sitting down talking somewhere, and so I have to, like I said, I type out the dialogue real quick, then blah 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 blah, but then I have to really think about, okay, what was he doing at this moment? He said this, so I can add that background, stuff. Because that's so important to to create the scene for other people. Because even though I see it, we have to have the reader see it as well. So yeah, it's
and I think that is another part of our problem too with the storytelling, and the reason why I keep changing things up so much.
Oh yeah.
Is because I see it. I see it as movie also, and because of that, I do camera change, and because of that,
different angles.
It's getting too long, and the whole point of comics is all about economy of space. One thing I keep looking at with successful Indiegogos is the size of the book compared to the success of the campaign. And it seems like too big of a book, it costs too much to make, costs a lot to make, it's premium, it's awesome, but people don't want to spend that much.
Right.
There seems like to be this sweet spot between $25 to $35, even $40, that people are really happy with. Oh, I'll spend that on a book, but you got to give them somewhere between 60 to 120 pages, or somewhere around in this type of thing, and I start mapping out pages, and all of a sudden I'm flipping, and before I know it, something that should have only taken maybe 3 pages to get done is now 10.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And
yeah.
So that's something we're having to learn too, is our panel sequencing, and especially me, I want to make the action more exciting, but then that just adds more panels and more.
Right.
Thing. Instead of making, I've been listening to a guy talk about what he likes in comics, and he reviews comic books, and sometimes I do forget what makes comics magical. It's like you didn't really need to see Spider-Man go here, there, over here, but there's that one awesome spider, one awesome pose, and then he could have a bunch of dialogue around him.
Right.
He didn't need the awesome pose for this one, a pose for that one, a pose for this one, then they're all the same size on the screen, and then they're not exactly exciting.
Right.
Yeah. So it's a learning curve. It's stuff that keeps on having to go back, and I look at the pages that I've done, and it's like, well, that should be more impactful, but it's small. But I need it that way in order to cram everything in. You know what I mean? So.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because there's some things, like, because I love Bruce's art.
That was good.
But, like there was one disagreement that we had was on this, there was this one sequence where Lucius sinks into the ground and then comes up and sucks the Nazis down into the ground. And he actually showed it from a kind of a side view where you could actually see Lucius underneath the ground moving from one Nazi to the next and pulling them all in. And, they were kind of suspended there with this pose of, oh my God, type thing as they're sucked into the ground. But I originally wrote it I kind of wanted it to have more of a horror feel to it, showing the terror of the, of the Nazis as they're being dragged into the ground. And so I think it worked better with the camera view up top as they're being sucked down, and and they're dragging their nails across the ground, trying to prevent themselves being sucked under. And I think that worked better than.
Right.
And so he actually has pictures of both.
In my mind, when you were just saying that, the horror aspect, I get that, but to me, the horror aspect of him being dragged down gets lost because the one night Garrett jumps over and spits fire out and burns up a bunch of people, so
that's scary.
They know they're being attacked. Right. But I was just thinking, what might be interesting is what if the remaining knights all go on the ground, and then the Nazis come up on the dead people and they're looking around, what's going on? Then all of a sudden, every one of them grabs somebody and brings them down, and and then they spring up and then just explode on them with all their different elements.
It's funny.
Is that horrifying?
And you have you have a world of possibilities, and.
What do you think, though?
Well, because it's good as it is. It's funny because if you wanted to, you could pull up those pictures. Because there's that one. We were just on the website. We were bringing the website back to life, and there is a scene where it shows that one Nazi being dragged in. I love that scene or that picture, and compared to the older one where it shows Lucius going.
Well, he still does that to the guy, just farther down the page, right. But. Okay. Yeah. I don't.
Yeah, it's but yeah, it's But this is to me this is the fun part because when you're collaborating with somebody, especially with somebody that is so talented. Bruce can thumbnail this stuff so fast, that I can tell him an idea and immediately he can have it, already being drawn. I just think that's, fantastic. Anyway, I don't know if that's a tangent or not, but
Let me see if this will work. I don't know. That everybody just says, "Oh, just use this; it works great," and where did there it is. Oh no, I wanted that. So does that mean that's over here? Yeah. So then I'd want to put that over there to bring this up. Hello. What, you're not gonna cooperate with me today? That makes sense, right?
So,
well, there's the website.
is that showing up on the screen?
Part of it.
That's cool.
That really is.
I don't know why
I don't know why it keeps on not loading, but
here's some of the pictures, you know.
yeah.
There's the fire thing.
And
There's the guy getting sucked in the ground. I love that shot. It just, you know, looks so terrifying. Yeah.
Fun.
Yeah, I just, I mean, it is amazing to me. I don't even know how to say this. You know, people always talk about, you know, finding your passion in life, and you know, that's what you should be doing. You know, what you're really passionate about, and you know, as a kid, you know, that was just words that people, you know, said. But yeah, I mean, as far as stories, it is truly, you know, my passion in life is, it's funny, I just love great stories, you know, whether I'm reading or writing or whatever, it's just, you know, a great story is what I'm truly passionate about. And it is just so exciting when I see something, you know, that I wrote transformed into a picture, you know, by a great artist. You know, it's really cool to see. Is this from our website, or is this just?
This is just
this is what we made that one flip book online.
Yeah, this is what I've done. I've taken all the pages that I've done so far,
Mm-hmm.
and because I wanted to see how things were laying out,
Right.
you know. So how the book opens up with. I wanted to try to get this feeling of a scene transition, like this turns into smoke
Mm-hmm.
and in my mind in the movies, what would happen is as it transitioned to over, all you would hear is the sound of hooves and of armor kind of clinking a little bit, you know, and
Right.
kind of a nice frosty morning or afternoon type thing.
Maybe a horse breathing.
Yeah.
Yeah. But even black and white, man, it still looks great.
Well, I appreciate that. Ah! He's saying that because he sees that and flying in front of him, and he gets all blown up. Ha ha. Yeah. So originally we had these 20 pages done, and I did it with all the black and the grayscale so that we could submit it. And then as I started working out more, I went to more of a drawn style, which is, I said, it's not helpful to keep changing things up.
I love that.
This one?
The machine gun.
Oh, that one?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's a good Google picture. And guys are getting shredded.
Because let's face it, guns are still powerful, even in a world of magic.
Mm-hmm. Well, they would be considered magic.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, like this scene right here where he's flaming on, like, you know.
Oh yeah, I changed that up a lot. It's probably
it's just funny to me because you know, in that particular scene, color would be fantastic.
Right.
I mean, because like that one scene you have there with the dogs next to, you know, the flaming dogs. You know, that guy in the background. I can't even remember his name, but it looks like Dr. Strange there.
Yeah. Yeah, I was really having some fun here.
Yeah, this is the scene where.
Yeah, this is the scene we're talking about where I had Lucius go down underneath and was pulling down guys and suspending them in the dirt while they were doing their thing up top, hacking and slashing and burning people up. I originally had the scene set that this guy was going to hit, roll, and come up and send out flame, but it was just too long.
Right.
And then making it smaller made it even harder to see.
Right.
And I thought it needed to be seen. I thought the action was so cool that it's like, you gotta see this stuff. I don't want to.
Yeah, I mean, it would be great, you know, eventually to, you know, have an animated. But yeah.
See, I love this thing. I love this right here where he's like forming the flame.
Right.
And then just unleashes a horde of flaming wolves who just do their best
Devour.
End of Indiana Jones.
Right. The candle wax.
And are
you have to admit,
burning Nazis.
Even for today's standards, you know, nowadays, you know, they would use CG to do that. But the whole candle wax thing, worked like a charm, and it was gross.
With his face melting off.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's some good stuff right there.
Right.
And then there's things I have to go through and fix here with this scene, but
yeah, it shows the guy sinking, and as he's sinking in, Lucius is raising up behind him.
Coming up behind him, yeah.
It's awesome.
I hope that reads like that's what's happening. It's kind of.
Well, I mean, what's that scene in between?
That's Nazis running through the woods.
Right.
And getting fireballs. Like,
right.
I wanted, because they some of them escape into the woods, and then we need them
to run back out.
Then we need them to run back out, right? So, and here they are saying, "Oh man, I just started to get into the fight." Well, you blah blah blah, you know, and Lucius being the old meanie, and then I like this scene because I thought I was able to use this twice, because it seems like, oh, they're turning to react to something, and what they're reacting to is the trees and the Nazis pouring back out. Now they're stuck. There's something horrifying in the woods,
Right.
They're in front of them, which is horrifying, and they don't know what to do. And then out of the woods comes that. And then I was able to kind of, it's like, there's this great Spanish artist from the 70s, his name was Fernando Fernandez, and he was able to do this. He was using one scene, but he would use it 2 or 3 times in his sequencing, and his storytelling is just on a whole nother level. I never seen anything like it. It was just amazing. So I'm stealing from him as much as possible, wherever I can, to figure out how to tell this stuff right, or innovatively.
Right.
You know, these are supposed to be all on computer screens inside her mech.
That whole world we created for her, or that virtual world that she's living in inside that machine, it's really cool.
I know this is kind of hard to see, but this is all history coming up in different windows, being shown to her what his time period this is with these knights and stuff, and
right.
just, I don't know. There's a few times every now and then when I make myself feel happy and proud.
Well, another thing that's great about that scene and about that character, you know, because when I first wrote that, she was kind of a throwaway character, and now I'm kind of thinking, you know, she's the perfect tool to where when the knights have any questions, or when Lucius has any questions about the future, or, you know, any kind of history, because he hasn't lived it, you know, he can ask her. She'd be the perfect tool, because she is still jacked into her mech.
Right. That is cool.
So any question that, you know, Lucius, I mean, she's the perfect tool for that kind of stuff.
This is my what does God need with the starship look. I think there's a lot of cool stuff going on in this little scene down here.
A scene with all
the knights.
No, with all
the airplanes. Yeah,
I love that.
Like, I like this because I like how each one of them, like, this guy looks like he wants to fight. This one's kind of like, just let me know what I need to do. This one thinks he's in charge. This one, he's thinking and he's wanting to fight. You know what I mean?
Right.
It just, yeah, this one with all the planes, you know, all the bombers and Lucius. It's like, no, it's all about this little book.
Yeah, I mean,
and then
that's definitely one of the cooler scenes. You know, if you think about it if you think about it deeply, the person from the future, the one that's in the mech driver that's in there, that she's from so far in the future that
50, 25 or something like that.
And then that these guys are from so far in the past. It's great to see that, you know, dichotomy, that you know, two extremes, you know, meet up. So yeah, it's
and she's gotten underneath quite a few revisions too, and they all kind of have. Their outfits have gotten so much cooler. Although it makes a lot more work, but they look so much. They look so cool.
You can definitely tell it's a blending of, you know, it's period correct, but at the same time, it's you know, you got, you know, both Asian influences and you know, European influence in there. It's really cool.
I really like the Luger stuck in his belt. I don't know why. I do it later with the samurai too.
Right. It's the spoils of war, man.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I added his eyes in as a whatever, and then I put it on. I put a couple versions of it on Instagram, and asked my art friends. It's like, what do people think? Eyes or no eyes? And everybody said eyes. They came back. They liked because they said that makes him tied to them, like
right.
he's controlling them. But
yeah. Yeah. Looks really good.
exciting. So try to color that.
Yeah.
Let's you color metal, and then horses or whatever,
And then flames.
and good luck. Yeah, it's been a challenge. Well, it should be. I mean, hopefully that makes it cool. And even in the wolves, I try to stylize them a little bit, make them look more magical, like they were definitely conjured up magically instead of just a wolf.
Right.
Yeah, last time we talked, and we talked like most all of this, but you really talked about your cousin Jamal.
Oh.
And about how everything that he's accomplished just by sticking to it.
Well, that's it's funny because people always go on to Joe Rogan's podcast and they'll tell him congratulations on your success and all this kind of stuff, and Joe always just says, the success of this podcast is really just because I've never not done it.
Right.
He never gave up. He just kept doing it and doing it and doing it, and pretty soon it got a huge following. And he was talking about my nephew. My nephew is his name's Jamal Thompson, and he's one of the top models in the world. There was Revlon did a men's line of makeup or facial care products for men, and they chose 4 models, and he was one of the models that they chose to do this. So he was got to do TV and all kinds of stuff for commercials, but Jamal is the same type of thing. When he started modeling, he was actually just a little kid, and his mom wanted him to do it or whatever, and when you start out on that path, you don't get paid really. You get royalties on the back end, and so you might not see a paycheck for months, years, and but now he has so many jobs under his belt that he's actually making a living as a model, and it's just one of those things that he just never gave up. And I had mentioned one of my heroes was Gary Larson, and Gary Larson, he wrote The Far Side. I was such a big fan that I even bought his autobiography when it came out. And he talks about how he got into these little comics strips that he wrote, or these single panel comics that he wrote. And when he started out, you would just send stuff to the newspapers, and they would say yes or no, I guess. So he, in his autobiography, talks about how he put together a portfolio and he sent it off to New York's, New York Times or whatever. I don't know which exactly. I can't remember. And never heard back. month or so went by, and he had made the mistake of he didn't send copies of his portfolio. He sent
The
originals, and so so he didn't have anything else to send to anyone else. So he had to physically fly to New York to go pick up his stuff. So when he got there, he went to the receptionist and he says, "Hi, my name's Gary Larson. I need to get my property back." And she's like, "Mr. Larson, could you hold it for a second?" And she picks up the phone and calls somebody, and she says, "My editor would like to talk to you." And she hands him the phone, and the guy on the other end says, "Mr. Larson?" And he's like, "Yes." "You're sick." He's like, "What?" He's like, "Hold on, I'll be right down." And so the guy comes out and tells him that he loved all the comic strips and everything, and basically he gets the job, happy ending. But fast forward to when I wanted to do this, you have to be syndicated now, so you have to go through a syndication company, and and so I put together a portfolio, same type of story, and sent it off to the one syndication company, and they said no. Sent me a form letter that said no, and I quit. I didn't do it again. I didn't keep trying, and I think it was probably the best lesson of my life is so many people talk about you get these chances of a lifetime. It only comes around once, and it's like, I truly do not believe that. It does not come once. It comes, you get thousands and thousands of chances. The problem is if a lot of people, they get crushed once and they just give up. Every successful person out there, the only reason that they're successful is they just didn't give up. They have thousands of stories of how they failed this time, and they failed another time, and they failed another time, and they failed another time, and finally they got it right. And it was funny because when I was in college, I did a business plan competition, all these different, part of the business plan competition was once you're in the top 10, you get assigned all these different mentors. And so I met all these different business people, people that have started their own successful business and stuff. And their stories are just filled with how many times they failed before they found success. And so with this podcast, with the book and everything like that, is I guess the lesson is don't give up, because I've done it, and that's, I guess, what would be my biggest regret is not continuing doing those single panel comic strips.
Yeah.
I still sometimes, 'cause I used to carry around a notepad and jot down ideas all the time on those. Yeah,
I got my analytics from YouTube, and doesn't seem like a lot, but we've had 964 minutes watched this month.
Really?
Or last month. Well, this
That's
month.
cool.
16 whole hours.
Oh, it's funny. One of the things that I haven't done still, and I need to do it, is
706 views.
I need to. I haven't shared this really around. My kids know I do a podcast. My ex-wife know So there's certain people that know, but I haven't Facebooked everybody.
Me neither. I haven't really told anybody.
Yeah.
And I think it's just from the viewers that I've had. I did this calibration for a Huion tablet that I had gotten, drawing tablet, and it was really off from where the pen would sit down on the glass compared to what the line would draw. It was actually drawing like that instead of usually it's about the idea that here then it's off, and you can kind of get over that, but you can't get over when it's like this. And so it's actually drawn way over here when you put the pen here, and it's that has 10,000 views now.
Well, yeah,
but
it's funny because the other one that had, well, I guess there was the one when we first started, you know, the first our first video, and then another one that had a lot of views was when I read the first 2 chapters.
That one's done really good.
When
20 views for reading chapter 1. Our first one still has done the best, 22 views.
Yeah.
But some of these have actually started getting some actual views. Some of these older you guys aren't seeing it. I've got YouTube up, but some of my older videos that I did when I streamed drawing all those pages on Twitch have actually started getting some views here and there, which has been, you know, just fantastic. I actually feel pretty good.
Yep. Yeah.
So that's cool.
I was thinking, you know, I mean, I didn't know if we were going to do it this time. I mean, I have my computer and we can read chapter 3. Whatever you want to do.
You can do that. Do you want to read chapter 3 and I can draw something?
Yeah, but I mean, do you have to set up or anything like that?
Oh, yeah, I'd have to kind of zap things around a little bit.
Well, while you set up, I can start reading, I guess. I mean, it won't destroy me or anything.
Right. No, all I'd be doing is doing something like, you know, just do this.
Right. Okay. So, this is continuing straight from, you know, where I left off in chapter 2. So chapter 3, A New World. Migno and Lucius make their way to the back door of the tavern through the empty kitchen. Outside is a spacious fenced area separated into 3 pens. One holds sheep, one holds pigs, and the other holds a few horses. The slight breeze carries the fragrance of damp grass and mutton stew. Migno leads Lucius around the fenced area to a 1-story house constructed of white marble. It looks like a small replica of a castle, complete with 2 small towers. Ooh, that's much better than the tavern. Why does the tavern look so worn? Lucius asked, staring at the mini castle. The tavern was designed to resemble a place Jesse had visited in some human city, Migno explains. This home, on the other hand, is made to resemble the castle we shall visit tomorrow. He knocks on the massive oak door, and after a few seconds, Izzy opens it from the other side. Migno smiles at her. "Hello, Izzy. We shall be spending the night," he says to her in Elven. "I know. Mother told me to make up the room for you," Izzy replies, holding the door wide open so Lucius can walk in. "We had another fight in there again, didn't we?" Izzy asks as they enter. "Yes, the Wood Watchers attacked the students," Migno answers. "The tavern has had shares of fight in the past. It was never the Wood Watchers, but someone was always getting drunk and starting a fight. It has become common to have men who consider themselves great fighters go to the tavern just to challenge Bogreet. He has been fighting all his life, and since the day he started working for the tavern, he has fought even more. "I want to go see the ceremony tomorrow," Izzy says, looking suddenly depressed. "I will ask your mother, but she will probably want you to stay here where it is safe," Migno says as he walks further into the room and sinks into a large, fluffy, pillow-like chair. The statement hits Izzy funny. She has become used to the violence of the tavern, but even with Bogri, she never considered herself safe.
Damn it.
Safe. She just doesn't want me to be a student. She doesn't want me to do anything normal. Unable to understand the conversation, Lucius surveys the spacious room. It has 5 soft, cushiony chairs facing each other in the center of the room, and the white marble walls reflect the light from the fire in the oversized fireplace, creating a peaceful glow in an otherwise dark room. The fireplace mantel is full of interesting items Jessie has collected. She has several small gardening spades, a few small daggers, and some brushes for painting, a small picture of a coat of arms, and assorted jewelry. Mounted to the wall above the mantel is a giant painting of Jessie and Izzy. In the back of the room there are 2 exits, a hallway, and next to it a door. I swear, my mom is going to make sure I never have any friends, any normal friends anyway, Izzy says, glancing towards Lucius. Lucius, believing they must be talking about him, decides he should defend himself from what sounds like an insult. If you guys are going to talk about me, could you at least say the bad things in English? Izzy, surprised by Lucius, opens her mouth to say something, changes her mind, and walks out of the room down the hallway. Lucius is left standing in the stunned silence. Mikno points to a chair, and Lucius shuffles over to sit. Did I say the wrong thing? Lucius asks as he sinks into one of the chairs. No, Izzy was mad about something else. She wasn't mad at you, Mikno explains, crossing his bare feet in front of himself. The silence is broken when Jessie walks in the front door. A musical voice fills the room. I'm sorry I took so long. I had a visit from the elven guards after you left. She continues as she plops into one of the chairs. They wanted to see what all the trouble was. She begins to rub her feet. I sure am glad to be off my feet. Do humans have this much pain serving people? Well, that's why we wear shoes, Lucius replies with a little smile. Shoes? Jessie says, looking down at Lucius's feet. Oh, is that what you call those things? Why are all the elves I met barefoot? Lucius asks, looking at Mikno's feet. Mikno chuckles a little bit and then explains. We don't wear shoes so we can remain in contact with the earth. In order to use elemental magic, we must have contact with the element. Not all creatures around here are barefoot. Ogreet wears leather sandals, but you can always spot an elemental wizard by the bare feet. He finishes wiggling his toes. Lucius smiles and nods his head, happy he finally answered that question. I guess I better show you to your rooms, Jessie says, standing up. Jessie leads Lucius and Mikno down the hallway. This will be your room, Lucius, she exclaims. Lucius enters the room. Now, my room is right across the hall if you need anything. Oh, and the washroom is at the end of the hall. Good night, Jessie explains and slowly closes the door. Washroom? Lucius questions as the door clicks closed. The spacious room is brightly lit with lanterns placed on each of the 4 walls. A fire is burning in a small fireplace built into the far wall. To the left of the fireplace is a supply of wood stacked on the floor, and to the right is a window with its wooden shutters closed. The right wall has a large, fluff-filled sack, which looks inviting compared to the white marble it rests against. The left wall has a mural of a castle painted on it. What's the matter with how I look? He ponders, looking down at his hands and body. His hands are soiled as much as his clothing, but he is no worse than he ever remembers looking. He wasn't quite sure what Jessie had meant for him to do, but judging by the way she and Mikno and every other elf looked at Lucius, was sure he didn't fit in with them looking as dirty as he did. All the elves he had met were exceptionally clean, and if he was going to blend in with them, he was going to need to be just as clean. But bathing? Lucius questioned, horror struck by the idea. He had experienced it before. The servants of the Duke were required to bathe before any large event, or they would be seen by aristocracy. Thankfully, it happened only occasionally, because Lucius remembered the bathing all too well. People were herded into a room like sheep, shoved into scalding pools of water, and scrubbed till they were nearly bleeding. When Lucius's turn came, he wasn't sure what the point was. The water was thick and brown. He was sure he would leave the pool dirtier than when he entered. At least this time, it will be just me. No one will be scrubbing me. But will I know what to do? Not wanting to think about it further, Lucius extinguishes the lanterns, throws another log into the fire, and undresses for bed. He sinks into the fluffy pillow bed, and pulls the blankets up to his chin. Lucius wakes the next morning to the smell of smoldering wood from the fireplace. Sunlight peeks through the window shutters, warming part of his face. Might as well get the full effect, he thinks. Crossing the room and opening the shutters, the sunlight feels warm against his face as he lets in the sounds of birds and the pungent aroma of flowers. A knock on the door shakes Lucius out of his dreamlike state, and he jumps, turning around to face the door. Who is it? He manages to fumble out. He hears Jesse's unmistakable musical voice. I just wanted to let you know I was going over to the tavern to start breakfast. Oh, okay, thank you, Lucius replies, hurrying to pull his pants on. Lucius opens his bedroom door, forces his feet into his shoes, and glances around for Jesse. But the hallway is empty. He walks to the end of the hallway, where Jesse said the washroom would be. You can do this. I never killed you before, he thinks, trying to reassure himself. But his mind is fighting back to soaking in his own filth isn't going to make you clean. Reluctantly, and with a heavy sigh, he opens the door at the end of the hallway, and is momentarily blinded by the magnificent shine and sparkle of the washroom. As his eyes adjust to the bright sunlight streaming through the open ceiling, he gazes in wonder at the beautifully hand-carved marble table, topped with a pottery wash basin. The sound of a waterfall catches his attention. On the other side of the room, an enormous marble tub catches water, which flows in the tub from the wall above. I guess this means I won't have to soak in my own filth. Lucius holds his hand under the waterfall, and it feels warm. Must be some kind of hot spring, he says to himself, noticing the water draining through the hole into the bottom of the tub. Lucius removes his clothing, unable to resist the temptation of trying the waterfall. The air outside is refreshingly cool on Lucius' freshly washed face and skin, and his torn, tattered clothing offer little protection as he walks to the tavern. As he opens the rear door of the tavern, he is surprised by the unmistakable aroma of bacon. In the past, when he helped his mother cook for the Duke of Normandy, he had on occasion sampled the food. Bacon was a rare treat for a servant. In the back of the kitchen, the dancers, Jesse, Izzy, and Bogreet, and Mikno are seated closely together around a small table enjoying their morning meal. They stop eating when Lucius enters, and with a rumble of indistinguishable voices, they wave him over to the table. Bogreet gives him a chair to sit in, and Jesse fills his plate till it is overflowing with food. Lucius happily looks at all the people gathered in front of him. "Thanks, everybody," he says with an uncontrollable smile. Everyone resumes their place at the table and begin to talk to Lucius all at once. Jesse interrupts with a little ahem, and everyone is a little more reserved. Makno speaks first. "Everyone, I'd like you to meet my newest student, Lucius." "So, Lucius, was your sleep pleasant?" "I slept better than I have in days. 5 days, to be exact," Lucius replies. Mikno smiles and resumes eating his food. The others hesitate to speak, but not wanting to speak all at once. Finally, the human female dancer begins. "Hi, my name is Adassa. I'll be helping you with the Elven language," she says, offering her hand. Lucius smiles at her. She has short, black, spiky hair, like a man, but no one would mistake her for one. Her female form is easily seen due to her skimpy clothing. She wears a leather cloth around her top and another around her waist. She has an innocent face, brown eyes, light smooth skin, beautiful full lips, and a dainty nose. Lucius shakes off his stupor and responds, "Oh yeah, thank you for your help, Adassa." He manages to fumble out. He stretches his polite hand across the table. Adassa stands and shakes his hand, but it's not gentle like a woman, it's more forceful like a man. Before Lucius can retract his hand, the dwarven female stands. "I don't speak very well human, but my name is Stelina," she says with her hand outstretched. Her voice is deep, monotone, and doesn't show any sign of emotion. She is shorter than Lucius, so he has to stretch a little farther over the table than he did with Adassa. Stelina has long, beautiful hair that reaches almost to the floor, a broad, flat nose, thin lips, and bright yellow eyes. She is dressed in a very comfortable-looking lamb's wool nightgown. Lucius releases her hand and looks around at the others, waiting to see if they are going to say something. "You know, I just realized, sorry, just to interrupt, I didn't mention that Stelina has red hair. Anyway, long, beautiful red hair that reaches almost to the floor. Anyway, continuing on. I guess I will finish with the introductions," Jesse's beautiful voice announces. She stands and walks over to the elven dancer, sitting next to Stelina. "This is Dale. She doesn't speak English. She started working here only a few weeks ago," Jesse says, tapping Dale on the shoulder. Dale bows toward Lucius and returns to eating her food. Dale is dressed in a lacy, loose-fitting nightgown, which reveals how skinny she is. She has straight, platinum blonde hair pulled back into a ponytail, green eyes, thin lips, and the typical pearly white porcelain elven skin. Jesse walks over to the halfling, who is sitting on a vine-legged bar stool, so she will be as tall as everyone else. This little beauty is Zinj. She is a halfling, she says, standing behind Zinj. She is already fully dressed in a very pretty baby doll dress, and her black hair is up in pigtails. She looks like a child going to church on Sunday. Jesse continues around the table, stopping next to the mammoth green ogre woman. "This is Oligri," she says, reaching up to place her hand on Oligri's shoulder. "She is an ogre, like Bogreet," she says, looking over at Bogreet, who is inhaling his halfling-sized food pile. Oligri is wearing a burlap sack dress. It hangs to the floor, covering everything except her arms, which stick out of the sides of the sack. Lucius wonders what would be carried in such a large sack. Oligri smiles at him for a moment and then continues to shovel food into her fat, bald head. "I believe that is everyone," Jessie announces, returning to her seat. "Thanks, everyone," Lucius says politely, picking up his fork. After breakfast, Jesse and Lucius head back to Jesse's castle-like house to pack for their trip to the Elven Castle. How far is it to the school? Lucius asked Micno. There will be another day's travel, but we will be stopping along the way. We need to get you some appropriate clothing, Micno says, looking over Lucius's torn and dirty clothing. Lucius glances down at his clothes. Do I get to wear student robes? No, I didn't mean appropriate for school. I meant appropriate for life here in the Elven Forest. We need you to look like you belong here. The better you look, the better your chances are at succeeding here. No matter what, I'll still be human. Yes, I know. But we do have humans who come here to our forest. When they arrive, they act like they belong. You look like you accidentally fell through the ground and wound up here. If you are to be the first human elemental magician, you will need to be as much like an elf as possible. Jesse finishes packing and gives Lucius and Micno each a sack with food and supplies. Shall we go? Jesse asked, throwing her sack over her shoulder and heading for the door. Outside the house, Izzy and Bogreed are standing next to 3 horses, which have been saddled. Izzy steps forward as Jesse exits the house and says I don't see why I can't go with you. You're more important here than I am, she says angrily in Elven. Izzy, I haven't left this place since before you were born. Sooner or later you will have to learn to run the tavern. Now is a good time, Jesse replies, flinging her sack onto one of the horses and tying it to the saddle. I don't want to run this place. I want a normal life, Izzy screams in Elven as she turns and runs to the tavern, slamming the back door. Well, that was pleasant, Jesse says sarcastically, switching back to the English language. Lucius smirks awkwardly and ties his sack to one of the horses, finding it amusing to watch elves go through the same domestic squabbles as humans. The elves are looking less and less like the visions of perfection he had in his mind. Bogreet, keep the place running smooth, and if she doesn't tend bar, then you'll have to. Remember, you're in charge, not Izzy, Jesse says as she mounts her horse. Micno and Lucius follow suit. Don't mind me, I'll keep this place running fine, Bogreet declares. He smiles broadly, revealing his large canine fangs. The horses whinny and stumble back away from him. Lucius barely maintains control over his frightened horse. Bogreet quickly closes his mouth and covers it with his hand. Sorry about that, he remarks, muffled by his hand. It's okay, Bogreet. We're used to it, Jesse replies. Is that Len? Is that your drawing?
I guess.
What's that? What's that mean? You guess.
I mean, yeah.
Okay.
Is it?
I mean, the hair.
Yeah.
Kinda gives it away.
Kinda, yeah. I'm trying to. I don't know if it's coming out all that well, but.
Right. Excuse me. So, anyway, continue on. Micno takes the lead, and they ride toward the forest. They head to the road they were on when they entered the mountain. Looking up, Lucius can see the sun to the top of the mountain. He figures the hollow mountain must be at least 3 miles wide at the top. He has no idea how big it is at the base, having only seen it from the outside. They enter the forest and it grows denser the further they travel. Sunlight manages to break through the leaves every so often, throwing pillars of light to the earth. The forest floor is damp from the lack of sunlight, and their horses sink 3 to 4 inches into the muddy ground with each step. They ride for a couple hours, and Lucius tries to absorb all the sights and sounds. The birds singing in the trees and millions of tiny insects swarm about the area. Lucius tries to ignore the insects as he would anywhere else, until one of them buzzes close to his face. He stares at the insect as it hovers in front of his face. It isn't an insect. It's a tiny humanoid with wings, about the size of a horsefly or small cricket. "What is this?" he asks, pointing at the creatures as they dance through the air around them. "They are fairies, but don't worry, they won't attack unless provoked," Mikno answers, glancing around at the gathering swarm of fairies. "Fairies? You mean they exist?" "In the stories I heard, they don't attack, they grant wishes and give away gold," Lucius says excitedly. "Yes, that's a common myth, and it's probably why they live only in this secret forest. They have to defend themselves from people who believe they are some kind of treasure maker," Mikno retorts. "There are a lot of creatures in these woods you won't find anywhere. You won't find where you come from," Jesse remarks. An hour passes, and they enter the part of the forest where the trees are less dense, which allows the sun to finally break through the treetop canopy. The heat of the sun is a welcome feeling to Lucius, and the horses travel much easier over solid ground. The trees are all much taller, and in the top of the trees, houses have been built into them. Crowds of elves move about the fat trunk trees, and the trees themselves are being used as a place to tether horses. "Welcome to Forest Town, Lucius. This is our first stop," Mikno says as he points up to one of the houses perched in the treetop. Lucius looks at the tree and is unable to locate any rope or ladder leading up to the houses. "How do we get up there?" he asks. But before anyone can speak, he receives his answer. He watches a family of elves a few feet away holding hands. A small tornado forms around them, lifting them into the air and carrying them safely up to the treehouse.
Oh, I thought they just ran straight into the trunk.
Lucius glances around at the rest of the town and watches as elves use different techniques to get to the top of the tree. Some of them fly to the treetops, some make staircases out of the earth, and some just ride pillars of earth that grow out of the ground. Forest Town was the first town built for elves by elves. The sheer height of the trees provided protection from predators and enemies. A person unable to use elemental magic would have to climb the long distance to the top. The crowd of elves pass slowly by Lucius, staring in silent surprise. No one ever sees humans in this town, especially one with shoes. Lucius nearly falls off his horse as he stares up at the building suspended in the tree. I can't do that. I can't fly," he declares as he concentrates on regaining his balance in a world that has begun spinning. "Don't worry, Lucius. We can," Jessie says, tying her horse to one of the metal rings embedded in the base of the fat tree. Mikno climbs off his horse, and Lucius reluctantly climbs off his. Mikno secures them to the tree. "So, Lucius, would you be more comfortable with stairs?" Mikno asks. As he asks the question, a staircase starts to spiral out of the ground. Lucius watches as the staircase forms, reaching all the way to the house in the treetop. "What is this place anyway?" Lucius asks as they reach the top stair. "This is where we will buy you clothing," Jessie answers, opening the door for Lucius. Inside the tailor shop, elves walk around looking at the different kinds of fabric hanging from the wall. Some elves are standing on pedestals getting measured by tailors. The house smells a little moldy, but is nicely kept. The floor has very fancy rugs, and the furnishings are made from a dark cherry wood. A nicely dressed elf with a piece of chalk tucked behind one ear is measuring tape hanging around his neck approaches. "May I be of service?" he asks in Elven, surveying the three new customers in front of him. "Yes, that would be lovely," Jessie answers in her smiling voice. She begins to survey the patterns of clothing hanging from the wall. "We are shopping for the boy. We need at least 5 shirts, 3 pairs of pants." She starts pointing at cloth samples on the wall. "For the shirts, I believe that one, and 2 of that color," she decides, and turns to another wall. "For the pants, I believe that one, and this one here. This is a durable fabric, right?" she asks, rubbing the fabric. "Yes, ma'am, it is very durable. It works well for pants," the elf tailor responds in Elven proudly. The tailor looks at Lucius. "Follow me, young man," he says in English. Lucius looks surprised and then asks, "You speak English?" "Well, I admit I'm not very good at it, since I don't get any humans up here, but I learned how to speak it just in case," the tailor answers, leading Lucius over to a pedestal. Now hop on up there and we'll get you measured." Lucius climbs onto the pedestal and the tailor begins to measure him. As he measures, he begins making polite conversation. "So, you're going to be the first human elemental magician, huh?" he asks, measuring the inseam on Lucius's leg. "How do you know about that?" Lucius asks, staring down at the elf. "Well, it's not really a secret. The woods are full of gossip. When Mikno first saw you, he had to come back and ask the king for permission to go back out and find you. He had to make sure you weren't one of those, how do you say, violent humans. That's why there was a guard with him," the tailor answers as he writes down some numbers on a scrap cloth. Mikno steps over to where the tailor is. "I don't want to fill his head with any stories from the past. We are trying to make the future better. He doesn't need to hear about the past," he declares sternly, gazing at the tailor. "I apologize, sir. I was just making conversation. I shall not discuss anything frightening with the boy," the tailor responds in Elven. Lucius looks at them both. "What's wrong?" he asks. "Nothing is wrong, sir. I just forgot my place." "I apologize," the tailor says as he starts to measure Lucius's waist. Lucius, not wanting to stand in silence, decides he better ask some questions to re-engage the conversation. "So is the school only elves?" he asked the tailor. "No, sir. There are other races that study, though you will be the only human to attend," the tailor says, writing down the waist measurement on the same cloth. "Did you ever study?" Lucius asked. "I wanted to be a guard at one time, and I did study, but my mother showed me how to be a tailor, and after her death I decided to follow her footsteps," the elf answers in a somber tone. Lucius stares down at the tailor's feet and says, "You don't wear any shoes, so you must still use it occasionally." The shopkeeper smiles and in a nostalgic voice says, "Ah, shoes. I haven't made any of those for some time. I guess you'll need a pair of those also?" "Oh, I nearly forgot that he needed those things," Jessie says, cutting into the conversation. "Yes, could we get a pair of those as well?" "That would be no trouble at all. I would be delighted," the tailor responds. Lucius decides to change the subject. "What other races go to the magic school?" he asks. The tailor glances at Mikno for approval before he answers. McNo doesn't seem to care, so he answers. There are a lot of races you have never seen, but you might have heard about. There are the elves, of course, dwarves, halflings, centaurs, and goblins. Those are just the creatures that attend the school. But you are correct. It is mostly elves. There are also many wondrous creatures that you've never seen, and they live right here in these woods. You said goblins. I've heard they steal children in the night. Do they? Aren't they evil? Lucius asked. Evil? No, they have their own way of life. But who are we to judge them? Every race has a shady past, especially humans, Taylor says with a slight grin. The stories you have heard are based on a myth. Some myths have a hint of truth. The goblins don't steal human children, but they were probably seen in the company of halflings. They keep them as slaves. Don't get me wrong, I believe slavery is wrong, but I believe they will eventually stop keeping slaves. They keep halflings as slaves? Halflings do look like human children. I guess that would explain the stories. McNo shakes his head at the tailor and mouths an inaudible warning. The tailor glances back to Lucius. Okay, well, I'm done with the measurements. I will start immediately. Will you be staying here, or will you be coming back? The tailor asks as he puts his chalk behind his ear and drapes the tape around over his shoulders. We will come back after we've eaten, Jesse answers. Taylor rushes away toward the back of the shop. Jesse's musical voice fills the air again. Shall we go? Lucius smiles and jumps enthusiastically off the pedestal. Blah. I could definitely eat, he says as he lands on the floor. And that was chapter 3. Hey.
Oh.
So you got Lynn.
I don't know. I just...
What? You're not happy?
No, it's not that. It's just, I don't know. I'm just putting a bunch of stuff on. I don't know what to do. I like putting these poofy balls.
The chapter you just heard, according to Bruce, is his favorite chapter.
Yeah.
It's mostly because it shows a new world.
Yeah.
You know, it is fun. It is a fun little thing to write.
Well, I like the imagery of the shop, and I have this like view of, like, if anybody's gone to Sequoia National Park in California, or one of the redwood parks.
I've been.
So they have the giant trees, but they have these beautiful paths that they've created, and a lot of the paths have fencing that they've made out of tree limbs and stuff, and people have used them so much they're all smooth and soft, and so I thought of like larger walkways and pathways for the horses and places, and everything's kind of cordoned off like that with beautiful ornate, not so much ornate, but just these walkways like that, but then the trees are like 4 times as big, wide, and then the idea that the shop being up was built up in around the tree and inside of it, not just attached to it, but actually incorporated into the tree. I even thought it'd be interesting that there's a few of the trees that have like the elves back in the olden times knew how to shape-shift wood.
Right.
And they actually created openings and things like that, so when the wind rushes through it makes like a little musical plays music. So you'd be like in certain places in the woods, you'd be like, why does it sound like a flute is playing, or a magical pipe, or something like that? And you're like, what is that beautiful sound? Almost like in Lord of the Rings when you hear in Lothlorien that nice the music they put in the background, but it's because of the trees and how they were created and made.
Yep.
And then we don't spend any time there.
You're talking about in the graphic novels.
Yeah.
Well, the graphic novel is more.
So
it's definitely dedicated to the lore.
If any of this sounds cool, then you need to put it in the comments that it needs to be in the graphic novel.
No, it doesn't.
Because he's not gonna do it.
It's this is the prequel to the.
I think most of the best moments are in the novels instead of the graphic novel. But
definitely you can't say that until you actually have until we finish the graphic novel. Because I mean, the only reason that the best scenes are in the novels right now is because the novels are more done than the graphic novels are.
Maybe. But there's some cool stuff in the novel that I've really liked, and that'd be fun to draw.
Well, there's nothing against drawing pictures in a novel.
And that's what I'm kind of hoping to use the Twitch streams for. Is I thought it'd be fun to draw things out of the novels.
It would be really cool, especially just like a big broad shot of the forest that we just talked about. I mean, that would be really neat.
Well, I would like to do a shot kind of from the ground up of the store up there, and them tying off their horses down below.
Right.
Maybe some others going up a little elevator or wood, but they'd have to be pretty far off,
right,
in order to be able to get all of that in the shot. But it'd still be kind of
it'd be a neat shot,
kind of a fun.
But also, I think it would be a really fun shot just to draw that Taylor, with the chalk behind his ear and the measuring tape and all pearly white, blonde hair. I think it would be cool.
Him and his
small, skinny,
buttoned up plaid. I see him in plaid.
I picture him. I mean, I didn't write it.
Vest.
Yeah, just a nice vest with perfectly tailored clothing. Be neat.
Yeah.
Of course, bare feet.
That was one thing. They kept on saying they hadn't seen anybody with shoes on, but wouldn't the dwarves wear shoes?
Yeah. But I mean, how often do they hang around dwarves? I mean, like they said,
the dwarf introduced herself there.
Right. Bogreet wears shoes, and so does Stelena. Yeah.
Right.
But yeah. But just like people hang around, who they're, who they most look like.
And once again, I have to kind of explain with Lan. I created this picture of Lan that I don't know why, but I thought it'd be like really creepy that if this was animated, that if you were looking at him and all of a sudden his hair shifted like there were worms. Every now and again, it'd be like super creepy.
What's that fuzzy thing on his belly?
Just a fuzzy ornate thing. I don't know. I feel like there's a word for it back in the 1500s when they called them dandies.
Oh.
They were kind of effeminate male, but they're like, it's like if you ever watch Rob Roy.
Yes.
Tim Roth's character was a dandy. So he was, very. You would not think he was a cold-blooded, ruthless killer,
right?
In the sword-fighting fashion. You would think he might murder you other ways, but you saw him at the sword fight, and they're like, "That guy? You want me to sword fight that guy?"
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, sure. And he'd get out there and hold the sword, like this, and and then all of a sudden, he was, like, uh-oh. It was their pool shark type of
right.
thing. And so I don't know, I kind of feel like he's that way a little bit at times, just very ornate, very...
He's definitely suffering from multiple personality disorder.
It's something to really offset him as something different.
Right.
Like really, really different. I feel like what that is just like, I drew a picture of him for that 30 days thing that I did, where I wanted to do 30 days of Shatteredtime characters. Oops. Hopefully that didn't show. This one, but oh, you gotta be kidding.
That is a cool picture right there.
So it's just kind of an idea that, he has I want him very skinny. And then just ornamental stuff, like his little cloak there, it's just a silk.
Mm-hmm.
It's very thin. He doesn't really have much on him. And so you think he's not dangerous? Does that make sense? And then he's dangerous?
If you think about it, he would have to be fairly approachable or whatever, because he's been worshipped through time by many followers. He is his own church. He is.
Mm-hmm. And this was an idea I had of him sucking the life force out of this guy.
Mm-hmm.
Tortured him a little bit beforehand, and now he's sucking the life force out of him.
Nice. Like those hands.
Took a long time to draw.
Very cool. Yeah.
That one would look like he was. His eyes are rolling back like heroin.
Mm-hmm.
Like he's getting stoned.
Mm-hmm.
But
feel the power.
yeah, I did those for what's it called? Inktober.
Inktober.
A while ago, yeah. Guess that's coming up again.
Yeah.
I thought about doing another 30 days of Shatteredtime characters for that, or Shatteredtime images.
Have you drawn Paul?
I have not. There's a character he keeps referencing, Paul, who shows up in the graphic novel a little bit. He's more prevalent in the novel.
Well, we were going to add more.
Right, and I love the idea of having him. He's kind of, in my mind, he's Han Solo.
Yes, he is. That's exactly who I
So
designed him after.
So
because he has the two sidekicks who are amazing.
Right, so he's Han Solo, which and that was the reason I liked the mech driver so much. I like the idea of making a love story with the mech driver, but that's just me.
That's possible.
I thought they would be an awesome side story with them. You could have those 4, even add one more to that group if you had to. And I had the idea that they went off to find Len, to search throughout history, or they had to go find Len.
Right. Well, she would be the perfect person as a partner to.
Right. So her and Paul went to find Len, and then they take the 2 dwarves with them, and maybe one more.
Because she's
Mariah would be cool with that group.
Because she's technically connected to her mech, no matter whether she's in it or out of it.
Right.
It's a lot like that video game. What the hell is that called? There's one where you can play as this.
Titanfall?
Yeah, Titanfall. It's a lot like Titanfall.
That might almost be a better book. That could be a cool book. That would be.
Oh yeah, would be a fun story.
Be a great team up,
Mm-hmm.
And then if you had Lucius with at least 3 of the knights, and then throw in throwing in Mikno would be really cool with that group. I don't know if he's spry enough to still work.
Sure, I mean,
or the cowboy, which isn't in the graphic novel, but I drew a fun cowboy. That would be he would be an interesting combination.
Right.
Or the sniper.
What about the samurai?
Right. Or the samurai could go with him instead.
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's so many little fun stories that you could do. I mean, personally, one of my favorite things in the graphic novel that could be its own separate comic book is when there's I can't even remember which character it is. He goes into a town that is completely all of Len, or a bunch of Len's followers. So they're all shapeshifters, and they've all turned into different things, different horrible, disgusting things. And he walks into a saloon, just like an Old West thing, but instead of running into a bunch of cowboys that are sitting around drinking, it's a bunch of monsters from your nightmare sitting around drinking. Right. It's like, holy shit! What did I walk into here?
Yeah, I would love. See, I think that'd be a great scene to rewrite with Paul, the mech driver, and then they pick up the cowboy there,
right?
Which would be kind of an interesting.
Yeah, I mean,
they pick up Trigun. That's funny.
But it's just
that's really what it is, right?
What?
I mean, close to it. Trigun, the character.
I don't know.
Or it's an anime.
Oh, okay.
Or the dead casket. What's the casket guy that he carries his funeral coffin on his back?
I don't know. I've never.
That's an anime too. I can't remember the name of it.
Somebody out there knows.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that would be.
But that's the thing that's so funny is
why don't you write that as one of
we've talked about
book 3.
Well, we've talked about the great thing about this is we're on book 1.
Mm-hmm.
And I think book 1 is really fleshed out quite well. But we talked about in other podcasts was the later books. I wanted to insert a thing in there that tells the reader that a lot of time has passed, because I want to, just like in Stephen King's The Stand, I want to show that so much time has passed and that basically everybody on the planet has started choosing sides. They're either Team Lynn or Team Lucius.
Right.
You know, and you know everything has reached this kind of normalcy. You know, because they're not really fighting the war that they were originally in. They're now, have kind of chosen a side, and they're still fighting, obviously, but this world is chaotic, anarchy, and everybody would have, in that kind of a situation, would seek out to try and find their own slice of the pie type
right
of thing.
Right. That's like I keep going back to that. I talked about that idea of you could almost write it at the end of book 2 book 2 would be kind of an interesting place to put it. Maybe even 3. It looks like they're going to save the world, but then don't.
I've gone back and forth on whether, that I should have him actually save the world. I mean, sometimes I think it's more important that I discuss how, because he has to do this, same type of ceremony that Len did. But I think the most important thing is that eventually, to end the book, Len has to die.
Right.
But just because Len dies doesn't mean everything goes back to normal. Because he has to, you have to change it, put it all back to normal. So, basically, once you get rid of Len, you get rid of that big bad, evil person. But you still have all these other, people that have learned magic, now have, the most advanced technology that they've ever seen. You also have aliens, Sometimes I think, it'd be cool to write a character, an alien character, and start giving him human technology and the ability to do human magic. And, this is all that kind of stuff that, was from the RPG, just to be able to play a character in an RPG would be so fun, to be all those things. It's like, oh, so what's your character? Oh, I'm an alien cyborg magician from planet Zentar.
Right. Well, see, that's what, it would be interesting that, I wouldn't want to write the story now and give it all away, but, if you killed Len at the end of book 3.
Well, I don't know if because
I know, but and then it opens in book 4, 100 years later, 50 years later, and it's a battle royale thing, and everybody's mashed together, and that's when you have, and we're like at a tournament type thing, and all of a sudden you start seeing an alien who can do magic, and you're like, what happened, and boom, 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 and then
because those aliens are badass enough.
Because tell me, and then blah 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 blah, and Lucius decides, no, this is all wrong. We got to put it back.
Yeah.
And he's now.
You'd have to ask.
Is he the good guy now or the bad guy?
Right, because you'd have to ask the question: is how many people would want to go back?
Right, and so now you have this dichotomy: is he now the bad guy or the good guy?
Mm-hmm.
And then you could have one of these guys from the tournament or something become the new leader, mm-hmm. And so now you have these two ambiguous sides going.
Well, yeah.
To a confrontation.
You would think, since we're talking about the whole world here, there'd probably be 85% of the world wouldn't even know who Lucius is.
Right.
Or maybe even 90%.
Well, there's tons of parts in the book where somehow he's just walking in to talk with presidents, and you're like, well, how is that happening?
Right.
But like I said, I love that idea of 50 years gone by, and
Oh yeah.
we see
too.
that beautiful. He had that beautiful beard and hair and the beautiful robes. And the next time we see him, his hair is chopped off. His beard is all stubble. He's got a stupid terry cloth robe on with a
Right.
spaghetti strap, whatever, white beater. I hate to use the word term, but coffee stain with a coffee mug, and wearing boxer shorts, living in some crappy old apartment in Barstow without air conditioning. You can see that, right? Like, he is just giving up.
Right.
He doesn't care.
Well, yeah.
And then
as soon as he's, that's the great thing. It's kind of a double-edged sword. You got all of these different paths, that the story can go down, and to me, that's all stems from the fact that this was originally written as an RPG.
Right.
Because an RPG, what it's supposed to give the reader and the game player is options.
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately, that relates to me as a writer, to where now I have a trillion fucking options. And it's like, what do I do?
Right. Well, just sitting here spitfiring, and the last thing we want to do is rewrite.
Right.
So, about 10, 15 years ago, they came out with a movie called Final Fantasy VII Advent Children Rising.
Mm-hmm.
As an animated movie all by itself, I think it's awesome. Just freaking amazing animation.
Mm-hmm.
How it fits in this Final Fantasy,
Mm-hmm.
all except for it's the characters from Final Fantasy in the world, I didn't understand how it fit with the story at all.
Probably.
Really. And it was amazing how, I get it, but yet it's like it didn't feel Final Fantasy to me. And I'm not a big Final Fantasy person, but it was like, where was the summoning with something and a flaming dragon wrapping around them and going after the other, some of the animations that they have used for that game are just spectacular, right? And it's like, at its core, that's what it is. It's the Final Fantasy. It's this character against that. It's an arena type fighting. Us three against those three. Us four, whatever. And so I don't know. It's rough because you see those animes, and they play very well. Mm-hmm. Those tournament, like Naruto was tournament, but then it had side story too, which was pretty cool. And are we this is just straight conjecture, kind of, but are you losing the spirit of the RPG by telling too much story that way? I don't know. And is that losing some of your magic behind it? And I don't know if it is.
Because I think, ultimately, I think what's going to happen is I'm going to end the story. I've kind of already made up my mind. I kind of want to end the story with Lynn dying. Because mostly I just want to get that overpowered person out of the game, basically, out of the world. Because once he's out of the world, what he's already set in motion, the world itself, that would be perfect for the RPG. What would also be kind of fun, and one of the things I've always talked about, is I would love to continue writing stories set in the Shatteredtime world, because like you said, there's a trillion stories you can write. Because you got all these great characters that we've already created, and you can just plug and play. But also I wanted to eventually invite other writers to write stories set in the Shattered Time world, just like George Lucas lets other people write stories about Star Wars.
Right.
Star Wars characters. So yeah, I think it's one of those things, basically we're not just creating a story, we're creating a universe. And other people are welcome to come in and play with my toys.
Right, and I love that. And I differ from everybody out there. I know well, not everybody, but I know I differ from a lot of people. And I'm not the biggest prequel fan because to me there's never any danger.
Well,
supposedly you're supposed to be able to feel like, well, how did he get out of that?
Well,
Batman.
It's funny though,
and
if you think about it though, we were just talking about the novels compared to the graphic novels. My novels are prequels.
Right.
It's the linear story of Lucius and the.
Right. Well, but that's linear. You start there and you'll end.
Right.
But
at the end. Right.
But what I'm saying is you see the end, and that character is there at the end, and then we go and tell a story. The Han Solo movie.
Right. That was a prequel.
I never felt like they're in danger. No matter how much danger you can put them in, I know he survives.
Right.
And so in my brain, and maybe it's just me being flawed this way, but I know he's going to get out of it somehow.
Right.
And so because of that, it just doesn't hold. And so then it's like, well, now make it about the character so much that I just can't get enough of the character. And it was like, wow, that was a poor excuse for a Han Solo.
The funny thing is,
I enjoyed
the movie Solo, mostly because I loved that ever since I saw the first Star Wars, Episode 4, ever since I saw that, I always wanted to know what the fuck the Kessel Run was.
The Kessel Run was, yeah, but that never even...
And when it finally was shown, I was so pleased to know what the fuck the Kessel Run was. I thought that was great.
But, yeah, in the extended universe that they did, Lando had this place like he always has, right? Where he had this thing where they ran TIE fighters around asteroids through an asteroid belt. And it was kind of like a challenge, the same type of thing. And that seems more like a challenge than...
Oh, sorry?
No, then we just got to get from here through there. Like, all it is, what... The Kessel, what...
And I also kind of like...
I don't know, what did that mean? That didn't mean nothing. What if it was a smuggler's run?
Right.
Then, okay, now it was the biggest letdown oh my gosh. You know what the best part of that movie was? Was the girl. She was the best part. They should have made more about her because she was the only authentic character in the story. Except for Chewie. But I mean, it's just like, oh my.
Well, also, another thing that they never explained, and one of the things that I was glad that they explained was, I wanted to know what he did to Jabba that made Jabba so damn mad that he wanted him dead.
What did he do?
I don't remember.
I can't remember. See, that's how uneventful that movie was. Yeah, what would he do that would make Jabba that pissed off?
Right.
I mean... Chua baka. I mean... Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
There was so much to have done better with that than what they.
Well, that's another thing
that hurt watching that movie.
That's another thing that I love about story development, though. Is,
but see, that's what makes The Mandalorian so good.
Okay.
It wasn't Boba Fett. There was no expectations of who the character was going to be. That's what made Rogue One halfway decent. No expectations. You could go in now to the Star Wars universe and just be like, okay, we're in the universe.
Right.
Oh, that's cool. That's Star Wars stuff over there. That's Star Wars stuff over there.
That's what I want. That's what I want with Shattered Time. I want the setting to be the same, but I mean, another one of my favorite things is I love the comic book Sin City. It's because there's all these separate stories, and they're completely separate stories. And it's just the setting that's important.
Yeah, it's Sin City.
It's Sin City.
Right. Yeah, you know what I mean? And
we're doing the same thing, man.
What?
We're creating the setting, man.
Yeah. And that's why I really like. I like I like more and more the shortening of what we got right now, down to like 3, and then exploding, because there's so many cool things to explode out. As cool as Len is, and Len is awesome.
But I don't know.
But could you imagine all his, like, some of his lieutenants being left over, and now they become like these kingpin bosses around, and kind of stuff like that, and
I just don't think we could pack that all into 3 books.
Well, no, but it would just go until you kind of just go.
Right.
You know what I mean?
If we were talking about
Oh, you mean pack all that down to 3?
Right. Because you were saying that we should.
Actually, I think you'd be surprised. Because, I think it wouldn't be as bad as you think.
Because I sometimes like when I first outlined the 4 novels, I didn't know how I'd ever kill Len in 4 novels. Because he has so many advantages being who he is. Yeah, I mean,
you do Indiana Jones to him, which is sad, but you really could. You could have it boom, boom, boom. He knows our world in and out. Then all of a sudden, this alien shows up and. You know what I mean? It's like everything except for a laser gun. He did not. No laser gun. You know what I mean?
Well,
could you imagine? And you're just like, you can have it almost as close to the end of book 1 type thing. It's like, and you're like,
the aliens are here to kill him. Yes. Spoiler alert. Sorry.
But you know what I mean? But it's like, oh crap.
But what I'm wanting to know, and this is funny, this is a complete tangent, is
like we don't know how to do those.
Right. So, one of the things that makes the aliens cool, besides the way that you drew them, because the alien, you don't have a picture, do you? But anyway, the aliens come to Earth looking.
This is like a general that I made.
Show 'em. But the aliens come to Earth because there's a disturbance, a temporal disturbance that originates from Earth. Anyway, but what's funny is the aliens use teleportation technology. And what I want to know is how, the technology that they have to teleport, if that translates at all into possible time travel, Anyway, you know, it to me it's fascinating.
This was the
Think about technologies.
alien that I came up with. Where's
But didn't the soldiers have like tentacles coming off their back?
Yeah, I drew. This was like just a general idea, and then that way it shouldn't show over. There you go. And then dun 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 dun.
Because I like the idea of them being able to attack multiple opponents. And so one of the things is you know, that makes the aliens so cool is they fight and teleport. You know, they use teleportation as a weapon, basically. You know, to find our weak side. You know, teleport behind you, blam 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 type thing. You know, it's but you know, soon the world will be, or all these technologies will blend together, and all this magic will blend together. Nice.
Yeah, that was the idea.
Yeah, that was,
I had for him. Yeah,
and that's what was that TV or not TV show? There was a movie, Johnny Mnemonic.
Johnny Mnemonic, yeah.
That there was a guy that had a monofilament whip like that.
Yeah, so he's slicing that dude in chunks. Zoom, 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 zoom.
Right.
Yeah, so that was the idea. That's just hair, and then a mask, so you could see how this guy would have hair and a mask over him like that too.
But yeah.
Yeah, no, there's some cool things I think that.
But yeah, you're right about, you know, all the little side stories that can happen will be, you know, it's just so awesome. I mean, the possibilities. Because that's one of the things that, you know, I definitely wanted, and I think that goal has easily been achieved is, you know, creating an RPG that has endless possibilities. And, you know, in that regard, we've done it. The hard part is making a story in there that, you know, doesn't go off on 1,000 different tangents.
Yep.
But sometimes
binds it all together.
Right. But yeah.
One story to rule them all.
Don't worry, they don't have to walk a ring anymore.
Oh, goodness. Well, that was fun.
But yeah.
Been 2 hours.
It has? Oh,
Yeah.
wow. But yeah, I mean, just, you know, because the more we talk on a podcast, the more I know that, you know, even though book one, I feel like that's pretty solid because it's really just an introduction. Once we get into the stories, you know, the stories that are all running parallel to each other, there's going to have to be some rewrites because there's a lot of conversations that need to happen between different characters to show that time has passed and you know that things are normalizing and you know and one of the tools that would be easy to use is using the mech driver as that tool or that source of information, you know, because she has a database of all of this history, and using people like Paul and you know people from the past, you know, basically playing catch up to try and figure out what's going on.
Right.
You know, and yeah, I think that would be the one way to tell the story.
Yeah, and I like the idea in the story. It's not in the story, but the more I sit and ponder on it, I love the idea of Len going in the history somewhere and changing something, and then it's very hard to perceive. But if you're magical, you can kind of see ripple, and you can see when the world changes,
right?
You know, and so there's these like perceived things like, uh-oh, the world's just changed, or maybe like even they're in places at times and something disappears in the scene. You know what I mean? Like, oh, that wasn't end up not being created, or didn't end up winding up in the same. Like he's changing even the future as we go along. So even though we think it's going somewhere, it's constantly kind of shifting and kind of we think we know where we're going. I mean, if we're going to play with time, let's play with time a little bit.
Well, that's what I was trying to get at with that when I was talking about alien technology versus the magic. Because in the spoiler alert again, in the final battle between Lynn and Lucius, they're fighting in what I called like a void, where they've stopped all time, so nobody else can even be involved in the fight, and it's just those two, you know, going at it in this kind of void.
Spatial anomaly.
Right, and you have to ask yourself, can the aliens using teleportation technology, because I kind of, think of teleportation as the same type of thing where you're in one spot and you blink, going into a void where nobody can see you, into another type of dimension, walking over to this other place and then reappearing. I mean, that's how in Marvel they explained Daredevil, or how he would teleport. So are the aliens able to interfere with their fight, or would they be able to?
Well, no.
This is getting really nerdy.
Right. I feel like the aliens are such a monkey wrench in Len's ultimate goal.
Yes.
That there has to be like and I know there is a confrontation before the main confrontation, where he really tries to take them out, and it seems like that'd be a huge pivotal battle. Yeah, it'd be, your idea, could somebody teleport from here into the spatial anomaly, no matter when that anomaly exists in time?
Right.
Just because it is a place.
It's like another dimension type thing.
Right.
Thinking. It's funny to talk about this stuff because, it's like, dude, you're the one that's inventing this. Why are you having trouble inventing it? It's like, well, I like to make things, I don't want to say I want to make it seem realistic, because of course it doesn't seem realistic because the stuff doesn't really exist, but scientists talk about how this stuff is supposed to work. So anyway.
Oh no, I think and not only that, but I mean, I think if you're not trying to figure out how to make your story the best, then it will never be any good.
Right.
The people that say no, this is what I did, and we're not changing it, usually it gets stale and boring.
Right.
You need to be able to move with it.
Right.
Now, you don't need to go around the corner and way down the street like Ryan Johnson did, but just move and groove with it.
Right. But yeah, I mean, I think, maybe in the final battle, maybe the aliens do interfere, and that's why Lucius wins.
Right.
Because, I mean, let's face it, Len should win. He's a badass.
Right, but I think, I don't want, once again, spoilers.
I know.
But Lucius is Quigley, right?
Right.
So, Lucius is going to win.
Right.
But you have all this built up, and then you can have this great French ending, which is, you have this Lee Van Cleef, and you have Clint Eastwood, and what's his name over there with the music, ding, 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 ding. You know what I mean?
I hated that.
Right? You have this whole thing, and you're looking at, it, and you're just like, okay, when's it gonna happen? They're gonna go at it, and who's gonna win? Who's gonna win? And then, boom, Len gets sliced up in a bunch of those pieces, and you're like, wait, what? And the aliens stand behind him like, and you're like, oh.
Right.
You know, but it's like, yeah. And then it's like, the alien and Lucius look at each other, and there's just like, I don't know, is it, we're keeping the world the way it is, no, it needs to go back.
Right.
We're keeping it, no, it needs to go back. And the alien goes, and Lucius goes. And then that's where the confrontation picks back up again. You know what I mean? Now it's Lucius. Now it's.
I mean, it could be they end up killing Lucius as well.
Well, I wouldn't. Or yeah, and then maybe it's. Then who would take over? The mech driver, or
the world is the world.
The world's the world.
Mm-hmm. If he dies, he dies.
There can only be one.
But yeah, I mean, once again, world of possibilities. But yeah, because all the, the only motivation that the aliens have is to destroy the anomaly, and so, they're in their mind, the anomaly would become Lucius, because Lucius, would have the exact same ability to jump through time, etc., etc.
Well, that's what I said, and then he just goes.
Mm-hmm. But yeah. Anyway.
Great.
But yeah, I mean,
why don't we just create more questions than answers?
I think, personally, I think as far as fun podcast, as far as I think it would be, this is definitely one that a bunch of people could comment on, and I welcome every comment that we get, because like I said, this is
please comment, like, subscribe, share.
Mm-hmm. And we it's just, like I said, it has a world of possibilities, and that's, what we were going for in the first place. And, so yeah, send your ideas. If you have, some great freaking idea, that'd be great. I mean, I can always do a, little short story. And I do welcome any writer out there who wants to write in this universe. Go for it.
Cool. And we always welcome looking at people who want to color.
Mm-hmm.
You saw there's plenty of images on here that I can send just to put colors over and see how they come out and how you roll. I don't know, I just I feel like it would just add a whole nother layer of things that would just look amazing. Because my brain doesn't talk in color very well. I see color well, but I don't do it well. So yeah, you know, if you're interested in that, put a comment down or DM us, whatever, direct message, and we'll get with you. And
what's our website again?
our website is burnoutstudios.com.
Cool.
Let's see if it.
We're just getting it back up, so it might not be up for a bit. For some reason, we're having trouble getting it up. I mean, they were nice enough to take my money. Hopefully, it'll be up.
It should have come up. I mean the place for us to build on it is there. See, that finally looks better, but the actual why it won't load, I don't understand.
Well, anyway,
let me try one last. It's running real slow though.
Yeah, might be because we're doing this also.
Could be.
Anyway, but yeah, we can wrap up. It's burnoutstudios.com. Once again, like and share, and etc.
Yeah,
please comment
Studios.
on our podcast. That'd be great. Any last thing?
Not that I can think of.
Okay. Well, should we say goodbye?
Yeah. Thanks for hanging around.
Yep.
We
Listening to two nerds talk.
interesting. Okay.
All right.
Yeah.
Bye.
Later. Bye.